Hello. In this particular lecture we are going to discuss about the plating of nanocomposites. That means we are going to do the coatings of nanocomposites, and by which we can modify the surface of that particular materials. So, before going to start, we have to know that why we are going to do the coatings and how it is helping to the surface engineering aspects. So, coating are used to enhance the resistance against different environmental agents such as a various types of corrosions, create new compatibility of surface. So, these all are the things. If you remember that from the first lecture I am discussing all these things, when we have discussed about the abrasions, we have discussed about the wear, we have discussed about the different problems which we are facing to our materials. So, just to eliminating those problems, just to make our surface more actives, more better than the previous one, we are going to do the coatings of that particular materials. Not only that, by doing the coatings, the outer properties of that particular materials it can be changed, like our material is hydrophilic. By doing any hydrophobic coatings, we can make it as a hydrophobic, or maybe it can work as a hydrophobic materials, or maybe we can make some kind of coatings by which our surface can be active and that particular mediums, or maybe inside some chemicals. So, these all are the different techniques, or maybe the different reasons by which we are doing the surface engineering methods. So, among main objective of this film which are of great interest for a long time, one can name promoting coating quality include increase of lifetime, lowering cost of productions, repair and maintenance, adapting with environment. Suppose when we are talking about some kind of cutting tools, or maybe the bearings, continuously the two surface is rubbing, by which the temperature is generating and the material properties, or maybe that surface is getting erode. So, when we are doing the coatings, we can make or maybe generate the new life to that particular materials. Not only that, we can enhance the new life and we can enhance the new surface so that the material can work properly, and also it will reduce the production cost, no need to make it the further, or maybe it is cheap to do this kind of coatings, and also it is useful for that particular environment in which it can work properly. So, here are the some examples when you are talking about some kind of coatings over there. So, from that particular case you can see that the red one is called the silica molecules and the black one is called the titanium oxide. So, selenium titanium oxide. So, simple, we are doing some kind of coatings. First initially we are having that substrate, then on that particular mesh some cracking has been done by which the corrosion is taking place. So, here we are using some titanium dioxide coatings. So, after certain time this titanium dioxide is reacting with the silica or maybe that silicon, and they are forming a new material which will be acting as a anti-corrosive one, or maybe that self healing of that particular material will be taking place. Now, here is the total summary of the material properties change associated with the nanocomposite coatings. So, what are the properties generally we can get after doing the coating of these particular materials? So, first one is called the properties of the nanocomposites. When we are talking about the mechanical properties, it can increase the hardness, it can increase the elastic modulus, it can increase the toughness, it can increase the bond strength. So, these all are the aspects by which for which we are doing the coatings of that particular nanomaterials. It can increase the tribological aspects of those materials in terms of abrasions, erosions, scratch, resistance, wear rate, volume loss. When we are talking about the electrical properties, it can increase the conductivity, photocurrent, charge discharge capacity, dielectric permittivity. When we are talking about the thermophysicals process, means where that as a thermal properties are getting involved, for that particular case maybe expansion coefficient, shock resistance, cycling life, diffusivity and conductivity, these properties can be increased. When we are talking about the other properties like osseointegrations, decomposition rate, photocurrent, resistivity, coercivity, corrosion current, wet loss, eddy current loss, saturation magnetizations may be decreased. So, the thing is that here it by choosing the proper coating we can enhance the particular properties, some particular properties of that particular material. So, either we can enhance the properties, we can decrease the properties, or maybe one properties it should we need that it should be increased, one properties it should be decreased. By choosing the proper coating materials, we can enhance one properties, we can degrade one properties of that particular material too. So, now here the general concepts that how we are going to do the coatings of that particular materials. So, actually there are two different concepts. One concept is called that matrix reinforced, where the reinforcing phase is within nanoscales, and another one is called the layered coatings, where the thickness of individual layers are within nanoscale dimensions. So, here the top of the coatings, it is a composite types in which we are incorporating some kind of nanoparticles. It is mixed with some polymers or maybe some metals, then it is preparing a coating, composite coating materials, then that materials we are applying onto our substrate to do the coating. And for the second case, simply we are having the substrate. Suppose I want to make a coat of one material, so I will give a layer of that materials, then if I want some another material, I can give a layer of that particular material. So, by layer techniques we can do the coatings of this particular materials or maybe this surface engineering. So, what are the functional coatings? So, there are several types of functional coatings. So, from the name itself, functional coatings, you can understand that when we are doing some kind of coatings, they will, of course they will enhance certain properties. Not only that, they will do some kind of reactions with the surface too. So, that is why it is called the functional coating, that they will functionalize the surface itself. The term functional coatings describes systems which possess, besides the classical properties of a coating, that means decorations and protections, and additional functionality it will generate. So, that is why the name of these particular coatings is known as the functional coatings. These additional functionality may be diverse and depend upon the actual applications of a coated substrate. Typical examples of functional coatings are self cleaning, easy to clean, anti-graffiti, anti-fouling, soft fill, and the antibacterial. So, these all are the examples of these functional coatings. From the name, from the right hand side figure, you can understand that where there we are going for some kind of mechanical bearings, maybe fasteners, some kind of electronic circuits, some kind of tools, or maybe some kind of self healing bio based materials, or maybe to make that materials maybe hydrophobic or maybe hydrophilic, we can do this kind of functional coatings. So, here the types and applications of the functional coatings, typical expectations of the functional coatings include durability, reproducibility, easy applications and cost effectiveness, tailored surface morphology, and the environmental friendliness. So, these all are the aspects by which or maybe for which we are going to do the functional coatings. So, here the functional coating performed by means of physical, mechanical, thermal, and the chemical properties. Chemically active functional coatings perform their activities either at film substrate interfaces, that means anticorrosive coatings in the bulk of the film, fire retardant or intumescent coatings, or at air film interface, antibacterial, or maybe the self cleaning. So, here this is the chart of that what type of functional coatings generally we can do. So, for optical properties, photoluminescent coatings, anti-reflective coatings, photochromatic coatings, generally we are using for our specs, we are using for some kind of biomedical applications, we are using for the glass substrates or maybe the glass materials, this kind of techniques. For structural properties, hard coatings, anti-abrasion coatings for making any kind of cutting tools or maybe that any kind of machining operations, any kind of machines, we are going to use this kind of coatings. When we are talking about the electrical properties, anti-static coating, conductive coatings, dielectric coatings, generally we are going to do for achieving some better electrical properties. With hygienic properties, we can go for some antimicrobial coatings, generally we can use this kind of techniques for our food packaging technology. Then with thermal properties, instrumentation coatings, heat resistant coatings, light resistant coatings, generally we can do. When we are talking about some physico chemical properties, some photocatalytic coatings, hydrophilic coatings, hydrophobic coatings. So, there are several number of applications or maybe techniques are there by which we can change our material properties or maybe the surface of that particular material properties. So, first we are going to discuss about the anticorrosive coatings. So, when we are going to do the anticorrosive coatings, generally we are applying this type of coatings for certain materials where that materials when it is working maybe it can create certain kind of corrosions. So, just to prevent that material, we are doing a coatings which can act as a anticorrosive in that particular environment. So, here organic coatings are applied onto metallic substrate in order to avoid the detrimental effect of corrosions. The best example of this kind of coatings is nothing but the paint. So, when you are doing any kind of welding, any kind of machining operations, just to save that materials from formations of any kind of oxides or maybe the sulfides, we are doing a coatings of paints. So, by which it cannot react with the environment itself, so that it will be anti-corrosions, acting as a anti-corrosions materials. The anti-corrosive performance of a coating depends upon several parameters like adhesion to metal, thickness, permeability, other relevant properties of the coating. Yes, of course, what type of material I am going to use, whether it will properly attach with our substrate or not. And then what is the thickness, because if the thickness will be lesser, then simply the moisture or maybe some kind of gas, it can go inside with the base metals and it can react. Then what is the porosity of that particular coating materials, if the porosity will be bigger, so any kind of molecules like water molecules or maybe that vapor molecules or maybe any kind of other impurities that can easily go inside and do the reaction with the base metals. So, these all are the parameters by which we have to choose the anti-corrosive coating materials. So, classes of anti-corrosive coatings, generally organic types, coal tars, phenolics, acrylics, epoxy and urethanes. Inorganic types, silicate, ceramic and glass. Conversion, anodizing, phosphatizing, then chromate and the molybdate. And the metallic coating, some galvanizing, vacuum vapor depositions, electroplating and the diffusions. So, these all are the different types of anti-corrosive coatings are available. So, here generally when we are talking about that anti-corrosive coatings, how it is the real life scenario. So, we are having that substrate on which we are doing the coating, and top of the coating the atmosphere or mechanical damage is taking place. That means that it is reacting with the environment or maybe some other shocks. Then what happened, after certain time the barrier integrity broken, moisture and corrosive species pass through these materials and then directly it can react with the substrate and it can deteriorate the material properties. So, just to stop all these things we can go for the anti-corrosive coatings. Here is a best examples that where we are using the coatings of some epoxy resins and polyethylenes, some kind of polymers on the steel. So, in between that we are putting certain kind of binder, otherwise this polyethylene and epoxy will not properly adhere to each other, maybe after certain time they will segregate or maybe they will peel off each other. So, just to make them more sticky we are using the binder materials inside these two. Next one is called the high thermal resistant and fire retardant coatings. From the name itself you can understand that this type of coatings we are using for certain materials, which materials we are going to use for the high temperature applications. So, just to save that materials should not degrade up to that high temperature and the flame will not occur to that temperature, just we are doing the coating of certain things which will help to make the material to work into that perfect temperature. So, high thermal resistant coatings are required for a wide variety of metallic substrates that we encounter in everyday life, including non-stick cookware, barbecues and the boilers. So, non-stick cookware are the perfect example for this kind of techniques. Fluorine or silicon based products are used to obtain a high thermal resistant. Binders such as phenolic or epoxy are used to prepare high thermal resistant coatings. So, here you can see that we are applying certain, we are using some materials at the flame also it is not degrading. So, these all are the different applications or maybe that some advancement of the surface engineering by using these high thermal resistant or maybe the fire retardant coatings. Next we are going to discuss about some scratch and abrasion resistant coatings. This one generally maximum times we are applying for our specs or maybe some kind of glass or maybe the windows or maybe some kind of equipment where we have to see what is going on inside. So, these all are the things. So, when the maximum times when we are just taking out our glass from the eyes, maybe our fingers can touch with the glass itself. So, what will happen, the fingerprint will be stamped onto our glass. So, and also sometimes we are taking this glass into the some rainy seasons. So, maybe some water droplet or maybe some rain water can directly comes onto the glass. So, if the surface of the glass will not be proper, so what will happen, that water droplets or maybe the water bubbles will stick with the glass itself or maybe some fingerprint will already be present or with the in the glass, or maybe there is some kind of scratches, because when we are wearing this glass and going through the environment, means by walking or running or maybe driving, so some kind of dust particle comes and they can do some kind of scratching onto the glass substrate or maybe the glasses. So, just to stop all this kind of nuisance we can use certain kind of coatings which can help us to use it as a some scratch resistant or abrasion resistant glass coatings. So, coatings are susceptible to damage caused by scratch and abrasions. Scratch resistance can be obtained by incorporating a greater number of crosslinks in the coating binder. To obtain optimal scratch resistance, the correct combination of hardness and flexibility is required. Organic inorganic hybrid films are paving the way for scratch resistant coating developments. Nowadays we are using some siloxane encapsulated silicon dioxide nanoparticles are used to develop scratch and abrasion resistant coatings. So, this is the some latest materials by which we can stop some kind of scratch or maybe that some kind of abrasions onto the glass itself. Next one is called the self cleaning coatings. So, from the name itself you can understand that here we are applying some materials which can be activated by the environmental itself. So, there is no need of any kind of binders or maybe any kind of outside activations to activate those materials. So, today the term lotus effect and self cleaning are the synonymous. So, if we see the lotus leaf actually any water particles comes onto it, it will not stick with the lotus leaf, it is totally fully hydrophobic materials or maybe that hydrophobic in nature. Not only that, any dust particle cannot stick with the lotus leaf. So, this is the perfect example of this self cleaning coatings. So, here we are not adding any outside materials or maybe foreign particles to that particular leaf. The lotus leaf itself is a self acclaimed property, having the self acclaimed properties by which it can resist the hydrophilicity or maybe that adhesions of any dust particle onto it. So, Bartholot and co-workers showed that the self cleaning property of lotus leaves was due to their specialized surface morphology and hydrophobicity. During the past few years, self cleaning coatings using photocatalytic titanium dioxide, especially with anatase crystalline form or maybe the anatase phase generally we are calling it, have attracted considerable attention both in academic and industrial sectors. Other beneficial effect of TiO2 is its super hydrophilic behavior, commonly known as the water sheathing effect. So, here is a one very good examples generally we are giving it. Suppose we are having the substrate, on that we are giving some hydrophilic coatings. So, now first maybe some dust particle is coming and it is depositing onto the substrate. So, when we are trying to wash this dust particle, we are putting some water particles from the top, but water particles will not go to that material unless and until there will be some dust particles. But if the coating material will be some hydrophilic materials, so automatically it will attract the water particles inside. So, what water particle will do? Water particle will try to go inside the dust particles and it will flush the dust particles from top of the surface. So, this is a very good examples for the self cleaning coatings. Here also one very good examples of the carbon nanotubes generally we are using for some biological applications. So, that can be activated some properties by which some kind of virus or bacteria can't go inside that material or maybe it can be reflected from the surface of that particular material. Now, we can do this kind of coatings for the antibacterial applications also. So, nowadays when we are talking about some kind of materials like barrier materials, some kind of packaging materials, some kind of biomedical applications or maybe some kind of materials which can be used for some kind of sophisticated applications. So, generally we are talking about some kind of antibacterial coatings. So, micrograins, microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi or viruses represent potential threats for our modern hygienic lifestyle. So, microbial growth on coated substrates may have several adverse consequences. To stop all these things, we are doing some kind of antibacterial coating over there. So, today more emphasis is placed on the development of biorepulsive without killing antibacterial coatings. Organic biocides include polymers, tertiary alkyl amines and organic acids, while inorganic biocides include silver, zinc oxide, copper oxide, titanium dioxide, selenium are used with the microcapsules in order to increase the longevity and efficiency of the antibacterial coatings. So, simply we are adding some kind of materials on top of that surface, so that any kind of bacteria or virus will not react with the substrate, simply it will repulsed from the surface itself. So, that coating is known as the antibacterial coating. Next is called the anti-fouling coatings. So, this is the best example that this material we are using for our ships, for our submarines, for naval purpose. So, generally when the materials is going inside the water, if the water will flow in a particular speed, there will not be any formations of any algae or any kind of other bacteria or maybe the virus. But when the water speed will be almost less, or maybe that the vehicle is totally stopped inside the water, maybe some kind of algae formation, some kind of virus formation, some kind of bacteria formations can be possible on that particular materials. So, here we are developing some kind of materials which will help that substrate material not to form the algae on top of that, or maybe the deposition of that bacteria, or maybe that plants, or maybe some kind of marine animals on top of that. So, that it can extend that ship life or maybe the marine life. So, for reasons of stringent legislation and toxicity, the use of biocides is restricted on a daily basis. Generally, previously we are using some kind of biocides which will restrict to form this kind of marine animals, plants, bacteria, or maybe that macrofouling onto the material itself. But generally this kind of materials is having the toxicity, this is not good for the environment. So, that is why we are going to use some kind of non-biocidal coatings which does not have any kind of side effects to the environmental also. So, here for example, tributylene is a highly efficient marine biocide, but it is no longer used due to its toxicity. It is important that biocide does not have any adverse effects on marine life while carrying out its antifouling activity. For long term antifouling effects, either controlled release or contact active biocides are required. So, based on that, because it is going inside the water, if it will generate certain kind of toxic gases, maybe that is not good for the animals which they are presenting inside the water itself. So, and maybe some kind of plants. So, that is why we do not use this kind of materials, but we can use some kind of materials which will be biocompatible, so that it will not give any kind of toxic gases or maybe any harmful reagents to the water itself. Recently, a number of antifouling products have been developed using microencapsulation technology. For the non-biocidal approach, polymers with low surface energy are used in order to avoid the adhesion of marine organisms, and silicon elastomers are widely used for this particular purpose. So, here from this particular figure you can understand that we are grafting some kind of polymers and which is acting as a antifouling polymers over there. So, we are putting some kind of initiators inside the polymers, then when it is some kind of bacteria is directly coming with that particular coating materials, the polymer will be automatically activated and it will reflect it, so that the algae formations or bacteria formations will not be taking place onto the substrate material. Next is called the conductive coatings with the core cell particles. This is the best example. Suppose we are having some insulator materials. So, just to make the conductive materials, simply we are doing the coatings of some materials which is conductive in nature. So, like this way we can change the total material electrical properties. So, in this particular case some kind of organic coatings are non-conductive in nature. So, in order to produce conductive coatings, generally we are using some carbonaceous materials in terms of carbon black, graphite, or maybe some kind of metal particles are usually added to the organic resins. The different possibilities for the design of conducting coatings can be summarized as follows: to use a conductive polymer as a continuous matrix, to addition of a conducting pigments into the organic resins. So, from this particular figure you can understand that we are having some core, we are doing some kind of surface modifications, then we are doing some kind of polymer growth, we are making it as a some kind of core shells, and then from the inside we are removing the core material. So, the hollow particle it is acting some kind of conducting materials. Here is also the same thing for some kind of electronics applications. We are using some kind of particles, we are for the battery, lithium ion battery, for cathode terminal generally we are using some kind of materials, and then we are coating that materials with some conducting materials to make it more conductive or maybe that more efficient. Next, enhancing coating functionalities with the microcapsules. So, generally we are using this one for this technology for the microcapsule applications. So, microcapsules can be used in a wide variety of applications, since the versatility of microencapsulation technologies offers unlimited combination of coarse and cell materials for their productions. To date, few investigations have been made into possible applications of microcapsules in functional coating developments. Microcapsules are applied onto substrate in various ways. For example, they may be sprayed over an existing coating layer, perhaps to provide immediate release of lubricants or perfumes. The most two common process of applying microcapsules in coatings are to incorporate them into a coating formulations by their electrolytic co-depositions with the metal ions. So, here is the examples that how we are going to use these applications for the technology for the micro encapsulations. Another interesting example is to use the microcapsule in the development of self healing coatings. For this, microcapsule containing monomer, cross linker or catalyst are incorporated into a coating matrix such that when a coating ruptures, the microcapsules along with rupture break open and release their contents itself. So, it is something the best example of that, like a punctureless tire. So, punctureless tube, maybe whatever that, if there will be any puncture, so automatically that material will come and it will get that healing, so that the air will be the tire will not lose the air pressure, so that it can work perfectly fine. So, this is also one kind of coating techniques by which if we are doing some kind of coatings, if the outer side coatings will be damaged, then from the inside the material will come and it will heal that particular zone, so that the coatings will remain same. Other applications, microencapsulated dyes used to formulate color coatings and forming agents. So, like this, for the targeted drug delivery, we can use some kind of micro encapsulations by which we can detect that how our medicines or maybe the drug is working inside the body. From the outside we can detect properly. Not only that, microcapsules containing perfumes, insecticides, chemicals and heat or pressure sensitive dyes can also be used for the functional coating preparations. So, here you can see that there is one materials which is yellow in color inside the in the center. Now, we are doing the layer by layer coating techniques to make it more active or more maybe more functional. So, now we have come to our last slide, which is nothing but the summarizations of this whole lecture. So, here the microencapsulations has already been proven as a successful technology for commercial applications in the pharmaceutical and agrochemical industries, and more recently also in the textile industry. The technology allows combination to mate the properties of different materials that are difficult or even impossible with other available technologies. Yes, because the same material we can use for the several applications based on the coating techniques. If there is any problem to that particular material, we can do the coating, so that we can increase the shelf life, we can change its properties. Not only that, we can change the we can increase the production rate, we can decrease the cost of that particular materials by these kind of coatings. Not only that, whatever the exact application I need, based on that I can choose that particular materials and I can do the coating. At present, the industry major problem is to provide functional coatings that are easy to apply and have long term stability. Consequently, attentions will be focused in this area. So, nowadays lots of scientists, lots of researchers are particularly working on this particular topic to make the material more versatile and its application area will be more widely used. Thank you.